Hearing to order. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the members of this committee. We'll start off with my far left. We have Representative Karina Magofnia, who is the Vice Chair for the Committee on Ways and Means. To her right is Representative Leila Staffler. To her right, Representative Christina Sablan. And to her right, we have Representative Babalta. I'm sorry. To my far right, we have Representative Patrick Sinicolas. To his left, we have Representative Richard Lizama. Next to him is Representative Vicente Camacho and Representative Denita Yanktamay. I am Donald Manglonia, Chair for this committee. And assisting the committee, we have our LB staff, Cameron Nicholas, Brendan Lade, DG, Jonathan Diaz, and our Sergeant at Arms. With 9 members present, that constitutes a quorum to conduct today's budget hearing. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now moving on to public comments. Do we have anyone from the gallery? Looks like we have none. We move on to the next item on the agenda. Good morning, members. Good morning, Secretary De Leon Guerrero. Today is the start of the budget hearings. We will be doing budget hearings throughout the month of May as well as the first 2 weeks of June. Unfortunately, we were supposed to start off with Department of Finance just so that we can get some of the questions answered in regards to the budget before moving on to the rest of the agencies. However, Secretary is not available and we'll be scheduling Department of Finance at a later date. So I thank you for your understanding. And, we welcome the Department of Commerce. I understand that we were not able to meet with Commerce last fiscal year. And so we hope to answer any questions and try to assist the department the best way we can. And so with that, I now invite Secretary De Leon Guerrero as well as any of your staff who will be assisting your presentation as well as answering questions from the members to please come and join us in the chamber. Good morning, Secretary, and good morning to your team. At this time, I hand over the floor to you if you would like to share any opening remarks or introduce the members of your team.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this August committee. First, I'd like to introduce from my far right is Director Dave Martita for ABTC. And then immediately to him, on my right, is our financial analyst for Department of Commerce, Bernie Palacios. And then to my left is the Director of Workman Compensation, Mr. Frank Cabrera. And further down is the Director of the Division of Economic Development, Mr. Jess Taisagui. I also have some other staff, I guess, behind me, but they're here just to support the process. I just wanted to make a very short comment, and that is I have looked at the submittal of the budget for commerce from the governors from the OMB, and we have analyzed it, and I look at it and we understand commerce fully understands the challenges that we have right now in terms of our economy, our revenue, and that we all have to work together in making sure that we save and we do the best we can to perform our duties based on the limited resources that we have. And so there's only one item that I would like to mention out maybe later on when we get to that point is on the worksman compensation. And there is a mandate that I would like to bring out. I know that it has not been addressed in the past, but it is still a mandate under the worksman compensation that I believe this body should be aware of and see how we can do something to start addressing that particular issue that have not been addressed in the past. That have not been addressed in the past. And then I'll come to that when I guess later on when we get into worksman compensation. But for in terms of the overall submittal from the office of the budget from the governor's office, we do support that submittal, and we would try and work our best. We've been through this in the past 1 year or 2 years, and we have survived. And I think we can continue to work again with the limited resources that we have to continue to provide the services that is needed to be given out to our clients and to the community, the people of the CNMI. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Um, well, at this time, I mean, you did mention the statute regarding workmen's compensation.
Yes.
Compensation. Can you please share,
Yes,
elaborate on that?
under the worksman compensation, there is a mandate there for an appropriation of some funding to take care of work-related accidents. When an employee have an accident in their respective duties while they're on duty, and also for coverage of death due to related no work. That has not been funded, and right now, what's happening is that whenever there is a case like that, we put that burden on the department to pay out of their budget. The insurance costs or the treatment costs and all these different costs that come with that particular incident. No? So I would like to turn it over to Mr. Frank Cabrera, and he's been with Worksman Compensation for a long time, and let him explain it more in terms of what is actually the mandate is all about.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of this prestigious body, and members of the LB. My name is Francisco Cabrera. I'm the director for the CNMI Workers' Compensation Commission under the auspice of the Department of Commerce. In lieu with the statement made by our secretary, truly, yeah, we do support the governor's submission. However, there are a few minor things that we need to look in and for consideration. The mandate pursuant to Public Laws 6-33 and 9-33 requires that the program is to be funded through a local appropriation. This is at the time when it was established during the now the defunct Northern Marianas Island Retirement Fund program, when the Workers' Comp Commission was under that auspice of office. Now, the mandate requires that it will be funded. Now, the funding is to cover for personal costs. That's the little meager part of the program. But the major part of the program is pretty much to cover for any and all work-related injuries, disabilities, illnesses, and including death. Back, just a short recap of what transpired. At the beginning in 1989, the program was not funded. In 1990, that was the first time it was fully funded. And it continued to be funded at a minimum amount based on where the status of government employees at the time. Now, during moving fast forward, 2009, the program was not funded up to this date. So any and all work-related injuries that requires medical care and attention, loss of wages, medical rehabilitation, off-island medical care and treatment is being funneled through the assistance with the medical referral office at this point in time. However, everything is being levied back to the department itself. The cost is absorbed by the department and agencies, autonomous agencies and whatnot, and instrumentalities since 2009 to present date. And if you may want to check back with other department and agencies, we send out our stringent notice that any work-related injury, illnesses, death, and whatnot, including coverage under the this pandemic, are to be absorbed by the respective department and agencies. What we're asking, if I may, please, is that we established a funding mechanism back in 2009. We sent that proposal into the governor's office, management and budget. We submitted that to the legislature back then and every year thereafter to today. I'm not sure or privy whether this August body have received those, the departmental, our departmental budget submission. However, we do include that the funding mechanism method in the budget package. The budget package funding mechanism that we created and established was to charge the Sinai government half of 1% of all personal costs, half of 1%. Considering the local appropriation budget, considering also the federal funding budget that we receive from the federal funds, and inclusive with what we are now facing, the pandemic under the ARPA. I've included the numbers of all the FTEs because according to the governor's budget submission, there's approximately only over 4,000 employees. When you add in all the federal fundings that the government agencies instrumentalities receive, and including the ARPA, there's a total of over 6,000 employees in the Sinai, government employees. So those were the neglect for coverage that we need to please consider if we can be provided a meager amount. What we're asking, based on that over 6,000 employees, we're asking a little bit over $1.3 million. However, we will look at if you can consider granting us $100,000 for this fiscal year appropriation. That should be much more sufficient that we can move forward with the program. I thank you.
Thank you, Secretary and Mr. Cabrera. Going back to the workers' comp, do you have data as to how much in expenditures this would have been charged to commerce? What was charged to each agencies?
Well, we have the data. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me. No, please forgive me. I'm on leave right now. My wife had a fractured ankle, and I have to take care of my disabled son also at the same time. When the secretary called, I jumped to the gun to be here with you folks here today to listen and listen to the question, and maybe I can prepare the answers within the next couple of days. But I do have the data on the cost. Just be mindful that back then in 2009, to the time that CHCC implemented the new fees and costs, it's astronomical. Just walking into the ER right now, it's going to cost about $450, one patient, 1 hour, not counting thereafter. Before, it was like $75, 1 hour. Now it's over $400. When you go on medical referral, it's very costly. And those are the things that are being absorbed by the Workers' Comp Commission. But since 2009, we continue to levy those information and their responsibility to the respective department agencies and instrumentalities. And they've been fruitful to respond that they have taken care of those issues and matters. I'll be more than happy if you just give me an ample time I can forward those information to the committees, to your officer and the committee members.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Chairman, that we are more than happy to receive what questions and data that you guys need, and we will try to submit it as expeditiously as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question before I hand it over to the members. I'm looking at your revolving fund accounts, filing fees, veto not fund, NIC, NAIC dues. Um, it doesn't, for example, the veto not fund has been collecting revenue for the past 2 years, 8,000 in 2020, 12,000 in 2021. Is that it seems to be like a low number. Is that what we should expect each year on average?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of this August committee. Yes, the Bironot licenses that we have now is very minimal. Not all the stores, as we speak, apply for the Bironot application license. So right now we have roughly around 120 licenses out in the retail stores. So we're discounting, like class 2 or class 1 bid or not license. We can discount duty free. They don't sell bid or not and other gift shops on the island. So that's the expectation that we had for a low turnout of the current bid or not license that we have on the island. So that the revenue amount that we have issued out to these licensees here on Saipan alone is, on the average 8,000 a year.
So these are the agents that would apply for the license that sells to the stores, or are these the stores that carry the Bionat?
Yes, we have two types of licenses. One is the class 1 who brings in imports the Bironot, and the class 2 are the retailers that sells to the consumers.
And so every stores that carry Bionat should have the license to
That
sell
is correct.
Bionat.
Yes.
And you're saying that's about 120
Yes.
on all three islands?
On Saipan alone. Now in Tinian and Rhoda, they have separate, they issue their own licenses. And I can roughly say that Tinian may have around 4 retailers there, and Rhoda about 7.
Now, are these stores supposed to display these certificates once?
Yes, they are required by law and regulation to display those licenses on, public view.
Okay. All right. I'll probably come back to that, but thank you for that. Before I hand it over to the members, I'd like to welcome and introduce the presence of the acting SA for OMB, Ms. Nadia. Welcome. Thank you. She's here to assist the committee as well as the agencies with any questions we may have in regards to the budget submission. With that, the floor is now open to any members. And I recognize Representative Staffler.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you so much for coming and joining us today, Secretary and all the directors. Thank you for bringing up the workers' comp issues. I wanted to ask a few clarifying questions. Currently, who collects workers' comp data? Is it your office, or would it be the other? If the other offices are paying for it, who's collecting the data?
We are responsible in collecting all the data.
How much of our government force is availing of these services?
Currently, right now, we have autonomous agencies and instrumentalities that have purchased their own workers' comp policy from a private insurance company. So any incidents, it's back to the private insurance company. There are only a few of them. The rest is through our office. What we do is we collect all the claim documents, we review, we analyze, we process, then we revert back to the employer stating so and so requires a lost wages payment. This is the total medical cost that needs to be paid, and so forth.
So we know how much it's costing us.
Yes,
Okay. Where do we find that data?
it's in our database.
Okay. Is that part of a centric report that you provide, or do you create a citizen-centric report for that, or?
We reported only the total number of claims filed. We don't report the fiscal amount.
Okay. That would be interesting to note for planning, and maybe that's some data that we could possibly ask from the office.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all for now, Chairman.
Thank you,
Thank
Rep.
you.
Staffler. Floor is now open. Recognize Rep. Sablon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Mr. Secretary, and to all the members of your team. I had a follow-up question on the workers' compensation issue. One is, what is the basis, Director Cabrera, for the proposed, I guess, formula that was in the budget package that you mentioned, 0.5% for all personnel costs? What is that based on?
Well, that is based, we use the OPA funding method, the 1%.
Okay.
However, when you look at the 1% of what we will need, it's going to be an astronomical cost. So what we did was, because of the fact that we don't have everyday activity for government employees to be injured at work, we reduced that to 0.5%. And that should be more than sufficient enough to cover. Remember, every year, wages have increased. So when wages increase, our current pay right now is only $140 per week. That's equal to $28 a day for 5 days for every single injured employee. But however, the first 3 days is not covered unless the injury exceeds the 3-day. On the 4th day forward, that's when we start making the payment. Now, going back on that 0.5%, we're looking at that as a meager amount and, stable
Mhm.
to answer,
Okay.
not to burden the central government with all the financial needs, what
And
we needed.
Is Commerce envisioning that this would be like a rolling fund, a fund that would roll over from?
It's a
fiscal year
roll,
to
we're
fiscal-
looking at the
okay,
rollover system.
I see.
Yes.
Okay, and would that include the autonomous agencies that you mentioned, which already have their own contracts with private insurers?
Well, we need to go back, once we get the funding,
Mm-hmm.
definitely we will have to meet with all the agencies that are currently on their own, on a private insurance company, that yes, the Sinema government have funded the workers' comp, and we hereby ask if you can refrain from any further expenditures on your end,
Yeah.
so that we can start using our bucket.
Okay, but you can provide this committee with the actual data for what the different departments and agencies have expended for workers' compensation claims?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, okay.
And you can also find that under the governor's budget submission, under the autonomous agency, per agency, because it's line item under insurance.
Okay, but for the other departments and agencies that are not covered with these private insurers?
Yes.
You can provide that, okay. But you said that for now, for this fiscal year, $100,000 should be sufficient,
Yes,
like
ma'am.
seed
Yeah,
funding?
yeah.
Okay,
So we can start moving forward.
okay, thank you. And so my next set of questions have to do with the daily penalties that are now being assessed or recently started to be assessed on businesses and nonprofits. Mr. Secretary, could you provide us with some of the data about how many businesses, how many nonprofits have been affected by the daily penalties, and how much has been paid out so far?
Okay, at this time, I don't have the exact figure on how many nonprofit have been charged with a daily penalty. or how many businesses have been charged with daily penalty. But the analysis that I did when this law was passed at the beginning of the pandemic, and so we did not actually we held it back for about 6 months just to kind of alert the corporations out there that this thing is already becomes a law, and that it will be it will be enforced. And so it was implemented about 5 or 6 months later. But when I start seeing people coming to my office complaining about them paying additional $600 or $1,000, then I went further and I asked the registrar's office to provide me with the history of the people that are coming in to complain. And believe me, 90% or 99% of the people that come in and complain have the habit of submitting the report 6 months or 7 months late. And because of the fact that we still do the registrar in a manual way, we haven't implemented really the mandate of the law for the registrar of corporation, where it says 60 days after March 2nd, and you don't submit your annual report, we can place you on administrative dissolution. But because communication between between our departments and the 4,000 corporations out there, it's kind of difficult to give them a heads up that, hey, your report is due between January and February, and by March 3rd, if you don't submit it, we have 60 days before we dissolve you. But now that's the reason why I asked for that revolving fund. Now we are just about there, where we are digitized. We're on the platform right now, and people don't have to come up to Commerce to submit their application for corporations. They can just do it on their computer. They can submit your annual report on the computer. They can submit everything, and we'll respond back to them. They can make payments on their computer, and they don't have to spend gas and staff sending people going up and down, going to finance to pay for their fees and things like that. But I don't really have the data that you're asking. I don't really have that readily right now, but we can provide you with that. Now, let me just give you a little bit of history. It's now beginning to settle down. Well, we don't, last year we had a lot of complaints. This year, we announced it out 2 months before the due date of the report. We announced it out, published it out, and now we're seeing practically none coming in right now with late report and complaints about that. At the same time, also, I've been working with the legislature. I've been working with the chairman of commerce here at the legislature to do an amendment on that law, because that law is straightforward and there's nothing we can do. We need to implement it. But all I'm asking is that at least in that area where only on that daily penalty, if they can give the Secretary of Commerce the flexibility of amending or postponing that or canceling that during pandemic time, or during a reason, a good reason why that report is not done. I think we can be more flexible on that. But that is being worked out with the Commerce Committee here at this legislature now. And we just had a meeting again 3 weeks ago. Moving forward with that, so that should be coming out soon to kind of give us more flexibility to deal with those people that have legitimate reason, and also when there's a pandemic or there's a huge typhoon that affects everybody, then we can probably suspend that a daily penalty in itself. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you. I guess I'd be interested also in knowing, for the data that you're going to submit to this committee, also knowing how many businesses actually had to dissolve as a result of these exorbitant daily penalties that they couldn't afford, or nonprofits for that matter, and then how many just reopened new business licenses, and so that they could continue to operate, because there is a cost as well for that, right? And a greater administrative burden for the government. And from what I understand, it also creates compliance issues for Rev and Tax
It does.
too. So I think that would be really helpful data for the purposes of this committee, but also for the legislation that's before the Commerce and Tourism Committee.
We will do that. Yes.
Thank you. And my next question is if you could also provide us with an update on the wage study for the
Okay.
prevailing wage.
Okay, we'll do that.
Do you have any updates on the prevailing wage study?
Well, I think our CSD has a wage study, a report that's already done that we can submit over to the legislature to look at. Uh, I'm not sure whether that was part of the last fiscal year, census and all these different data collection, but I will find out the latest one and I'll submit over to you guys for everybody's review.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And then, just to clarify really quickly, did you say that now all the various permits and license applications, those can be done online now?
Yes, within a couple of months,
Mhm.
we're already working on the platform. We're already changing all the different permit and certificates to fit into this program, platform,
Okay,
so that in a couple of months from now, people don't have to spend any more money sending people up to commerce and
Okay.
going to finance, paying their
so they
their
can
fees.
submit the forms
just-
and
they
the
just-
reports and
everything
pay
right
their
there,
fees
right there
online?
on
Okay.
our platform.
And is that integrated with the Munis system?
Yes,
Okay.
integrated with InnoGov,
I see.
and
Okay.
then also Munis because of the payment.
Okay.
So they can just make the payment through using their credit card through the computer,
Mhm.
and they'll get back their receipt. They submit it over to commerce, and we're done.
Okay, that's
know.
wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's going to be happening to all the different departments in commerce, including ABTC, Workman Com, all the
Okay.
ones that issues out certificates or permits.
Mhm.
It's all going to be in that platform.
Okay.
So that
Great. And within a couple of months, you said?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And my
yes.
final question, it has to do with the state of insurance regulation now. So the Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation submitted a report to the Health and Welfare Committee at the beginning of this term on various issues having to do with how we could expand access to health insurance for
Mhm.
our people here. And one of the issues that was raised was that the most, if not all, of the private insurers here do not meet the medical loss ratio requirements that are set forth in our law. And that would be in Title 4, Section 7615. And I guess I just wanted to ask you, since you are the insurance regulator, what is the status of regulation of our insurance companies here?
Well, I'm just new here as a commissioner of the insurance, but I've participated with the NIAC, the National Insurance Association, which looked at this, and this is what we are actually looking at in terms of the insurance company capability here in the CNMI and the need, for the health providers here, and we're seeing a lot of questionable, uh, insurance policies that have been set out, not in the CNMI, but in other state, that the NIAC Association is trying to come out with rules and procedure in terms of how we can protect the customers, the health people customers, when they start buying these different insurance and so forth. So we are in July, I think July 16. I'll be in the States with all the commissioners roundtable to finalize these issues, and not just the health, but also because of the pandemic. There's a lot of things that are happening that we need to get a hold on, and so there's a lot of regulations that's going to be implemented in the states and also that covers the territory that will ensure that we have these policies on hand, and that we enforce it to all the insurance providers here in the
Okay.
territories and in the United States too.
And in terms of your budget, is that covered under, I mean, do you have the staff and the operations budget and included in your proposal? Is that under enforcement and compliance?
Yeah,
Is that
no,
under
yes.
your office? Where
Yes,
does that
the,
get
the
covered?
the insurance is under the Secretary of Commerce budget.
Okay,
So both insurance, banking are all under the Secretary's budget.
okay. And since we're on the subject of insurance, it it was recently brought to my attention that this may be a small thing, but I wonder how many issues like this are out there in the insurance realm, uh, where like motorcycle owners are unable to
Yes.
like the policy that's in place is that they have to get 3 rejections from 3 different insurance
Mhm.
companies, and then you, the insurance regulator,
Yes.
will issue a letter forcing one of the insurance companies to cover. Is that really the case? And
That's
how
what's
can we
happening
fix
right
that?
now.
Okay.
Yeah, but we make that decision based on the transaction that have gone through each of the insurance company.
Mhm.
Uh, and I am sorry that Charlotte, Borja is not here, but there is a formula that we use in selecting which insurance company will provide this insurance. But yes, that's ongoing right now. Most of the smaller insurance company will not issue any motorcycle insurance,
Mhm.
and so they need to get pre-rejection. And when it comes up to our office, we look at the status of all the different insurance company that we have here, and looking at the who has the bigger, what do you call this, asset to cover these liabilities and all that. And
Mhm.
based on that, we decide who will provide the insurance. And so far we've been working very well with all this insurance that we're giving this opportunity to provide the insurance company. But I know it's been sometimes the person that buys the motorcycle complains because he has to go around and get 3 rejection. But
Right.
there's nothing we can do because the small insurance will not provide that.
Well, I
that
guess I'm wondering if that's something that requires a legislative fix, because it's
maybe.
and if that happens in any other area
Yeah.
of insurance,
Yeah.
not just motorcycles, but
Mhm.
I don't know, particular health conditions or whatever it might be, where you have to force a company to.
That's very good. That's something to look at. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. Before we proceed, I just wanted to go back to uh, ABC, Alcoholic Beverage Control. The request, you had requested for 30 FTEs total, which is an additional 14. I'm assuming 14 new FTEs, but it looks like that wasn't granted. Can you just explain what the additional 14 FTEs would be used for, and how that would assist this division?
Okay, thank you for that question, Chairman. But for the record, before we proceed forward, my name is David Marutita. I'm the Director of ABTC under the Department of Commerce. Now, with respect to the additional 14 FTEs that we have requested, is that for the purpose for that is we are transitioning into a 24 hours operation. We've had that plan prior to the pandemic, but when the pandemic kicked in, we kind of held that plan, back because it wasn't just possible to transition to 24 hours operation because of the cutoff hours, the layoffs of personnel that we have to deal with during the pandemic. However, that is the main purpose because we are basing ourselves on the business demands out there. We have additional classified licenses that was passed into law. Before we had only 7 classes, and we had additional class 8, 9, which is the businesses that operate up to 4 o'clock in the morning, and the class 9s are the ones that operate 24 hours. So we do need to have our personnel out there for 24 hours with respect to that grounds. Going back to the business demands, we gauge our proposal towards how many class 7s that we have that operates up to 4 a.m. and how many of the class 9s, 8 and 9s that we have out there in the, that are licensed. So yeah, it just, drives our purposes of why we need additional personnel, to operate 24 hours a day. or within our daily operations. So that is the reason and the purpose for additional 14 FTEs. When we divvy up our schedule, for 8 staff within the 24 hours period. So that's, you know,
But these 14 additional FTEs would have been just for enforcement officers?
that is strictly enforcement, yes.
Okay. No. I see that you have 3 vacant enforcement officer positions. Um, have you not been able to fill those due to lack of interested
No,
applicants? Or
those are right now in the process of our, the admin office to announce those positions. And like I said, we kind of held back because of the pandemic, we held back in announcing those positions. And now that we're, getting back, we have new businesses that are applying for licenses. We need those additional 3 or those 3 vacant positions to be announced.
but it hasn't been announced yet.
It's in the process right now with our admin office.
All right. Thank you, Director Maridita. Floor is open. I recognize Rep. Babalta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the Department of Commerce and all your management team. Um, Clarifying questions as to the directed to the ABTC director. You mentioned that you would need to, or transitioning, you're trying to transition into a 24 hour operation. Why would there be a need for ABTC to operate on a 24-hour basis? I'm not sure I heard your justification.
Yeah, because we do have licenses that operate 24 hours.
Okay, and have you communicated with DPS as to maybe aligning and working in tandem with them in an attempt to make the government a little bit more efficient? You guys have practically the same law enforcement authority as DPS. Why would working in tandem with DPS not work or not be efficient for ABTC enforcement officers?
Well, working in tandem is, we've been working in tandem with DPS,
Mhm.
okay, but guess the responsibilities, the duties and responsibilities out there is separate, is different, because we deal directly with the businesses, and whereas DPS deal directly with the entire public.
I understand
So,
that, but if I understand correctly, ABTC enforces regulations and DPS would enforce the criminal aspect of whatever happens in these 24-hour businesses or your class sevens, as I heard. So why would enforcing regulations require a 24-hour operation for ABTC? And have you taken into account the additional costs with hiring 14 enforcement officers to operate on a 24-hour basis to include the fringe benefits, the overtime, the night differential, which is not included in the budget submission for all those other fringe benefits?
well, I believe the fringe benefits is included within the request. However, the night differential and overtime, we do have the present revolving accounts that we can tap in to subsidize the overtime and the night differential as written in, Public Law 19-32. Um,
But do you not see that working with DPS would be a better approach than what you're proposing?
well, we've worked with the DPS, with respect to responding to, minors consuming alcohol, okay, and to that effect. We do have, experience with responding to calls that only ABTC is, responding to those minors consuming alcohol. Right now, as we speak, DPS are not probably. I don't know what is the issue with arresting a minor for consuming alcohol. So when they channel those complaints to us, okay, to address minors consuming alcohol. So that has been also an issue that we have brought up to the Attorney General's office with respect to who is responsible actually, or how can we work together in addressing minors consuming alcohols in our community. So part of the responsibilities that we have is, arresting powers and, arresting minors, and then, we bring them to DOC and they get released within, an hour or two because of if they're under 18 years old, there's certain limitation, of handling individuals that are under 18 years old as opposed to 18 and above. So those are the challenges that we're facing with working together with DPS as responding to minors consuming alcohol in our community.
Okay. General question to the secretary. I noticed in the budget submission, both in the department request and the governor's proposal, that in all the divisions of commerce, Department of Commerce, your operation budget is extremely low.
Our operation budget. You're talking
In
about
in
all
all,
others?
I'm sorry?
About all
Yes.
other costs?
Yes. It's extremely low, and your personnel costs are extremely high compared
Yes.
to
Yes.
the operations. And I understand business a little bit, that human capital is one of the highest costs in any business or in departments or any nonprofit. But it just seems odd that all the divisions, I mean, look at economic development, the governor proposed $1,525 only
Mhm,
for operations for the entire year.
mhm.
Where is it?
Well,
And that doesn't seem to commensurate with the amount that is allotted for personnel. Is there any other funding source that?
yes, let me explain that. With the consideration that the economy right now is not that good, and that we need to all conserve expenditure. We are utilizing some of our revolving fund to support all these other needs under all others, no, and that we're only asking for funding for personnel. Now, if you look at the personal cost, of course it went up because during the pandemic, the past 2 years, ABTC is also charged with enforcing the COVID-19 protocols out there, and at the same time also they're also involved with what is the other one? COVID-19,
Travel bubble.
and also the travel bubble, making sure that the hotels that are going to be utilized met all the protocols on the COVID-19. So they have added so many staff to ABTC, and I think that one is funded under ARPA. Now we're just looking forward and seeing that, hey, when we were doing that, we were finding also that there are violations out there that it deals with serving alcohol to minors, or going beyond that 2 o'clock in 2 o'clock closure time, or 4 o'clock closure time. That is part of the ABTC responsibility to enforce, and that's the reason why we're saying there is a need to not just the 8 hours, but also a need to monitor these businesses that are authorized to operate beyond the 8 hours, to ensure that they are in compliance. And that's why he's asking for additional staffing for the night shift. So yeah, to answer your question, we are utilizing our revolving fund, because we have revolving fund for registrar, we have revolving fund also for ABTC, and we try to maximize the use of those allow on the revolving fund to be used for all others to support not just that division but the whole commerce function. So
What
yeah,
is the balance of your revolving fund?
I don't have that exact amount right now, but we can provide you that.
Do you have an estimate? Do you have an estimate of the balance?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
in right now for do you have your
Yeah, I can, interject in that. We have for the Bironat account, right now, as we speak, we have a total of around $12,000 balance. For the tobacco account, we have around 7,000. And for the alcohol revolving account, we have about $3,000 balance at this time because we've been using it for our operational, you know, um, requirements out there that we enforce, what is needed to be enforced under the ABTC operations.
It still seems relatively low compared to the way I'm seeing the numbers. It still seems relatively low for operations to run an enforcement agency. So that's why I'm baffled by these numbers. That the number of the amount of personnel costs, it does not commensurate with the operational costs. Is what I'm seeing. Um, but that's all. That's my comment on that. I yield at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I just want to recognize the presence of floor leader Ralph Humel, who's joining the committee to assist and to ask any questions he may have. But just briefly going back to Rep. Bauta's inquiry as to the revolving fund, it looks like the bulk of your revolving fund comes from filing fees. Do you have
Yes.
any balance as of a certain date that you have with you
we
right
can
now?
provide you. Yes, we can provide the balance. So do you have the balance
I can do
revolving?
that. I can, if I may,
Okay.
Secretary
Yes.
Nadia here.
Okay.
I can get that for you as I have JDE.
All right.
But I wanted to answer Representative Babauta's inquiry regarding operations for the Department of Commerce. So as Secretary De Leon Guro mentioned, that they're using current ARPA funding levels. Funding is set to expire before the end of 2024. So they have sufficient balances to support their operations.
Yes.
For the secretary's account, as of today, there's $400,000 available. They have their own plan to support personnel at 20%, furloughed employees who are reinstated at 100%, and all other operational costs. And as I mentioned to some members of this honorable house, that we are working on a revised budget to identify whatever is remaining to be allocated for ARPA so that we can propose hopefully additional funding to agencies such as the Department of Commerce.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boa. And I recognize floor leader.
Just to clarify, because Ms. Nadia mentioned that the past all others is being utilized under ARPA, but in the revolving fund, it does state that the actual expense for the Department of Commerce is 301,000 in the budget. So are you clarifying that the 301,000 on that was used under the revolving fund is ARPA, or this is revolving fund?
Sorry, Representative Yumo, was that question addressed to me or? Okay, sorry.
Just to clarify, because you've mentioned that this past year ARPA was used to to cover the all others of the Department of Commerce, but in the revolving fund, an amount of 301,000 that was submitted. Actual was $301,000. So just wanted to clarify that so that we can note that maybe that's something that needs to be adjusted. That it wasn't 301,000 that was used from the general fund.
So The 301,000 for FY 2021 was in fact from their revolving fund. And that could be probably expenses incurred before the ARPA money was awarded to the agencies. That didn't happen until April of 2021. So past the mid-year mark of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Flor. I recognize Vice Chair McGoffin.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome again, Director and your team. So just looking at the big picture, right, you guys submitted a proposed budget of 2.2 million. With the governor's submission, he offered to provide 1.3 million, approximately 1.3 million through general fund, and then subsidize it with ARPA by about 340K, which still leaves you guys with a shortfall of about 484K or 22%. What is the financial impact on your operations with the governor's budget submission?
Is that for 2023 budget?
Yes.
Well, the
Sorry, Secretary, your mic, please. Yeah.
the total, yes, the total amount of funding that we requested actually was $2.1 billion, and the submittal from the governor can only come up to 1.377. No? But our understanding is that there are still ARPA funding that can subsidize whatever we cannot, we cannot meet on the regular appropriation to continue just like the fiscal year 2022. And so that's the reason why we're saying if we get the same amount of ARPA assistance for commerce on fiscal year 2022, we will be able to survive also on fiscal year 2023 with the proposed budget now.
Right. So according to the governor's budget, right, he's willing to supplement the $340,000 with ARPA funding, but that only covers your personnel cost. Every other line item under ARPA for instance, for your operations and utilities is zero funded by ARPA.
Okay.
So is there a disconnect with the understanding that the governor will use ARPA funds to sustain your operations, whereas in his submission of the budget, he zero funded all of that with under ARPA?
Well, it's going to be difficult, but as I said, we understand the critical, funding that we have right now in our local, and I made it clear that if this is the only amount that we can get from the local funding, that we would need support from the ARPA funding, and I was assured that would, that can happen. So
Okay.
we're in support of that. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Additional, in line with Rep. Selena Babata's question regarding your operational budget, right? It is significantly low. I mean, just for instance, under Secretary of Commerce, you submitted for operations 19,000. Approximately $19,000, but the governor's budget was only for 4,000, and this is for an entire year.
Yes.
And so maybe you can help us understand some of the operational expenses that your department incurs, and what were your actual expenditures for instance, for like fiscal year 2021, in comparison to the $4,000
Yes.
that you are being
Actually,
appropriated.
Actually, the 4,000 is only for the contribution to the
OPA.
to the OPM. There was zero out in terms of the all others. And the only thing that we're asking at in our original budget submittal was to cover for power utilities,
Right.
and that's the other one, to cover utilities and one more. Okay. So there's only two items that they asked to cover, but the rest of the, that there's nothing there. You don't see any travel there because some of the travel that we do are paid by the organization that we are a member of, and again we try to conserve a lot of the things that like our power and everything else, and we have experienced this in the 2022 budget, and I think we can still continue to do the same thing for 2023, utilizing the minimum amount that we have to carry out, or to satisfy the all other requirements that we have.
Okay, so now that you've clarified that, for instance, we're referring to your budget, right, under the Secretary of Commerce, the
Mhm.
4,000 is actually for the 1% to
Yes,
OPA.
yes.
Where does that leave you with your operations? The
We will have
revolving
to use the
account.
revolving account,
And
yes.
so are you saying that there's sufficient funds in your revolving account to cover your operational budget based on the actual balance that's in there right now?
We
There's a, because I was, my thought process is if we understand what your actual expenditures were for, even for first quarter of 2022, and we annualize it. It's a challenge. Out thing. So just wanted to clarify. Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're looking at 2023. Just the division, the division of economic development. We have been granted federal grants that also allow us to use certain amount percentage of that for all others and for additional staffing and other expenditures. No? So we're looking at all of those things to leverage. Just to let you know, the SSBCI, which Commerce will be rolling out pretty soon, is in the tune of $57 million that we'll be rolling out to small businesses and to all businesses here in the CNMI that needs assistance in improving their business or in expanding their business or just continuing to open their business. And then there's also another program that we're rolling out pretty soon, which is to help those businesses that have been affected by the COVID-19 to recover some of the costs that they lost and to continue again to stay alive and to improve their business. So those also have some all others that authorizes Commerce to utilize. And so putting all this together, that's how Commerce is able to move forward. Plus some federal program from the ARPA and some from the Revolving Fund, putting it together helps us to move forward with all the need that we have for all others.
Thank you for that clarification. It really does help paint the picture because when we look at the budget on the surface, right, it doesn't really say much, and it calls for attention because it's concerning how the numbers are represented. But with that clarification, it helps to understand where some of the other funding sources will be used for your operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I think it was clarified also by Ms. Bua that the whatever balance that was allocated for ARPA for commerce from this fiscal year will be carried over. Is that correct, Ms. Bua? Do we have a running balance of what hasn't been obligated and what's available?
I gave the balance for your account, for instance. So SEC's balance as of date is 400. One moment, let me just pull it up. 465,000.
Okay.
449,326.
Okay.
And we only have one more quarter to cover with that. So there's going to be some left over, and that will be roll over too.
So these balances won't be put into a pot and then redistributed. It will be for the same agencies.
So I don't know that if I discussed it with you or with speaker, but what we're going to be doing is meeting with the agencies to tell them their balances, what their plans are for the remainder of the fiscal year, and if additional resources are needed, then we will allocate what's remaining of the ARPA pot
So
to
you,
them, or redirect funds. So for instance, if we proposed for 10 positions and none of them were filled in the current fiscal year, that would be transferred to another priority.
so if secretary has 400K left over at the end of the fiscal year and other agencies may need it, then you would take from that?
His account is actually has the bulk of the operational money for all the other divisions under his agency.
Okay.
So
But-
whatever to cover whatever deficits, whatever shortages in the general fund, his ARPA account is able to do that.
But can I just clarify that, Chairman, a little bit? That 400,000 is not going to be there at the end of the fiscal year
Yeah.
because we still have
Right.
funding going on for the
Right.
last quarter of this fiscal year, and that covers the 20% for on the furlough that we bring back and some other stuff for this fiscal year 2022. So at the end of fiscal year 2022, that's going to be much less than the 400,000 that you're showing right now.
Well, I guess my main concern is that because you have that huge of a balance, which I'm sure you have plans for, why would the revolving fund account be tapped when those are non-lapsing funds that could be saved for a rainy day? But it looks like it's being used currently when there's this significant amount of ARPA that could be used to address those.
The ARPA funding is actually already set as to where they're going to be used, and that's the money that will cover all the personnel benefits and others that to carry the number of staff that we have right now all the way to September 30. And that's why I'm saying that 400,000 is going to be a lot less left over after at the end of September 30, at the end of this fiscal year, because there's still every payroll is deducted from there because we're covering the 20%. We're covering other benefits for the employees that are on board right now to carry us all the way up to September 30.
Sorry, Ms. Pua, is the 400 operational or personnel or
So
both?
as you saw in
Could be
our
usable.
budget proposal for the current year, everything was lump sum into personnel, but as needed, the agency would send our office a request to move to their operations
Okay.
to specific divisions.
Um,
And just to clarify, for the current year, it does not look like any of their revolving funds were tapped. It looks like they're saving it for rainy days. They're utilizing their ARPA.
so do we have a balance from the
So
revolving fund?
for
Because,
the filing fees, I was actually going to see if I could email it to have someone print it here. According to Tyler Muniz, there's $2,000 available for that account. And as I expressed to you that we're still not very confident in the numbers that are being transferred yet. Like we're still doing implementation with Tyler Muniz. So based on what has been transferred so far, there's $2,000 available for the filing fees account. And I can also submit this to maybe one of your secretaries to print, or Mr. Rabago.
Thank you, Ms. Pua, and Mr. Director Marquita, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to add on to that, because we're working also with the Tyler Muniz folks because we still have some accounts that needs to be reconciled from the past fiscal years that hasn't been posted yet. So that current number that we're seeing in Muniz at $2,000 is not the actual amount that that we would have currently have right now if it has been reconciled. But there's a lot of still work around with the Tyler Muniz to have those actual amounts posted up. As we speak, again, we do have our renewal that's coming up. The bulk of the renewal is from between June and September, so that amount again will go up on the revolving accounts.
So clarified. Flor, you had your hand up.
Yes, just thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just clarifying because I guess the ARPA question is the Department of Commerce normally averages post-pandemic about $600,000 in collections for the revolving fund, and I'm assuming that we're not collecting 600,000 a year based on the revenue for banking, revenue for insurance, registrar, ABTC. Uh, it's I'm assuming it's lower this past year significantly. It looks like it's I'm assuming from the collections 171 actual. Post pandemic is about 650,000. So ARPA technically covers that 500 some thousand that's not there. So your statement on the amount that it's going to be less than you know 400,000. I forgot what you were saying. That's not accurate because our ARPA supposedly covers the shortages of your revolving fund, and that's what we're trying to clarify now. Um, is that a truth?
But ARPA is covering the shortage on the revolving fund? I don't see that.
Because it's a shortage. You're collecting fees from the businesses. Obviously, it drops significantly.
Not all permitting fees are given back to commerce as a revolving fund. There's only two sections of commerce that have revolving fund, and that is the register of corporation and the ABTC. The banking, the insurance, and this other the weights and measure, the enforcement, all of the permits goes
To the
to the
general
general
fund.
fund.
Okay,
There's only two. There's only two
that
sections.
stays within the.
Yes, that comes to commerce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question, Mr. Chairman, and that's to the OMB. Just just to clarify, moving forward, why was not ARPA not distributed to all branches of the government for this time? Is there any rationale behind that?
For the judiciary and for the legislature, we gave everything in the current fiscal year. So that was the agreement with the last legislature. So if you notice, both of those branches were not.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so if you notice, your positions are 100% budgeted for in the general fund.
Okay. Just clarification.
Thank you for one moment. For the first round, recognize Rep. Lizama.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome to the House, ladies and gentlemen. Secretary of Commerce, Mr. De Guerrero. This is a question to alcoholic beverage control. You're requesting for about 14 more personnel. How long ago since you have your 16? How many years back?
Can you repeat your question, please? I'm sorry.
You're requesting for 14 more personnel, and you have 16. How long since you have 16? How many years back?
16 is, we have, well, it's about 4 or 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but we literally start out with actually 4, 5. And, over the years, we've been asking for more FTs because there's more responsibilities given to ABTC for the new laws that have been passed and, given that responsibility to our office. So that's how we ended up with 16 right now. With the, we're looking at 16 for 24 hours operation. It's not sufficient enough. That's why we included additional 14. The 14 that we have included is the current ARPA accounts or the staff that we have. So I'm just, trying to keep the staff that we have trained right now for this new fiscal year. If not, the ARPA, again, if we're not granted with the 14 new FTEs, I believe that the ARPA account can, cover that for this fiscal year. And then we'll work again for another request for the next following fiscal year and, put in our plans of actions for the 14 hours, I mean, for 24 hours operation.
Yeah, that's basically because the fact that we have ARPA fundings that we can acquire for more personnel.
Right,
But like what
yes,
Congresswoman Selena
right.
Bauta said, that TPS can help you. Are you running on a standby basis within a 24 hours operation, or you have personnel doing the work on your 24 hours operation?
No, right now we have on-call officers,
Yes, okay.
right? On-call officers, if there's a complaint that
Okay.
received, because our hotline is 24 hours,
Okay.
on call.
So it does
So,
work.
we just,
on-call.
we assign whoever's the closest to the identified location where the complaint is made, then we send the closest officer there. Um, we compensate them for any on-call through, the current revolving count that we have. If there is necessary overtime that would take place with that on-call. Yes.
Clarified. Thank you. A question to work compensation. I haven't had a chance, but if we require each employee $1 per pay period, it's what you call tax. Would that be a revenue generation for your operation?
To answer you, Representative Lizama, there will be a negative response pursuant to the statute and the regulation. It clearly states that no single penny shall be deducted from the employee's payroll.
So with that,
It's in the statute that we can't charge the employee anything to that extent.
because I've seen it in the States, they have employees that would charge a little bit of a compensation, a tax to each individual. But if that's different because we're in the CNMI, that clarifies my question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I hear back.
Thank you, Reverend Zama. I recognize Vice Chair McGoffin.
Just a very quick question. So I noticed that on your budget and the governor's budget, you both budgeted 0 for utilities. And is there a reason why?
I can answer that. Hi, Representative Magofnia. Currently all the utilities and some communications of the central government is being paid for by their invoices are just submitted to the Secretary of Finance. So it's they're taking care of the entire executive branch.
I recognize Rep. Sablan.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I had a question about the 2 programs you mentioned to assist small businesses. So you mentioned SSBCI. You're rolling out a program that will make $57 million available to businesses. And what's the other one for COVID-19? I'm sorry. Could you use your mic? Your microphone is off. Yeah.
It's called the Boost program. It's to kind of help the small business that have suffered through this pandemic, to recover back. Some of them have closed down. Some of them has reduced their business because of the hardship that they go through the pandemic.
Okay.
And that we just wanted to help them to get back again to where they are before the pandemic, and perhaps expand their business.
And is the source of funding for that is ARPA or another source?
That's coming from ARPA.
Is that the $20 million that the Secretary of Finance announced at the beginning of this year, or is that?
Yes, it's
another?
between. I think it's between 10 to 15 million or
10 to
something.
15
Yeah,
million?
in that
Okay.
amount. Yes.
Okay. And when will you be posting the
We are
guidance for that?
We are now doing finalizing all the requirements and the qualifications, and then we probably with 30 days from now we will be announcing it out to the general public, and also providing all the information. We want, because we just don't want to roll it out. We want also to provide technical assistance to small business that don't know how to submit your application or cannot put together the application. We will have that capability of helping them to put together their application to submit into the bank, because we're going through the bank.
Right.
This is going directly to the bank.
Also, this is a loan program.
It is a loan. It is a loan, but the only reason why we send it to the bank is because we don't want this grant to be thrown out and then it ends up doing something else than what is planned.
Mhm.
So it goes to the bank, and at the end of the day, if everything is done and the business people did what they submitted as planned for their for this loan,
Mhm.
then they'll be forgiven 80% of this loan.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
And that you said was 10 to 15 million. And so I think I also heard you say that Commerce expects to receive some percentage of that from the 57 million and the 10 to 15
Not from
million?
that, from the SSBCI.
Okay.
SSBCI, we have
That's
we have administrative costs and all this.
Okay.
And the SSBCI is actually a 3-year program. This Commerce has been the grantee for the SSBCI, but in the past they let CDA runs it, and up to now. So we're looking at Grant 1 and Grant 2. This is the new round of the second grant. But on when I first came into Commerce and I sat down with CDA, there seems to be some resistance of running it again. Okay, and for some reason that I don't know, because I wasn't there at that time. There was some administrative things that were done, and that was not really reimbursed back to them. But the first award, we still have like several $1 million that have not been rolled out. Okay. This is the second one now that we applied and Commerce is getting, and this is a $57 million grant, and for 3 years period of time. So we need to roll out 18 million every year, or if we can justify, we can roll out more than $18 million. But the 3 years will be approved in one time.
Mhm.
The 57 million, and out of that 57 million, there is also technical assistance money available. There is administrative costs available, trainings,
Mhm.
and recruiting a personnel that are expert in doing the reportings and all these different things, compliance for the program.
Okay.
So those are all included in that package.
And how much do you expect to generate in administrative costs for Commerce?
For Commerce, maybe somewhere around 400,000 to 500,000
Okay. And that can be used for
for
all
yes,
operations
all
of
operations.
Commerce?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And that would be for this fiscal year?
Yes.
Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Salon. Anyone else? Recognize Rep. Tamay.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome. I just want to go back to what Rep. Tina was saying about the fees. Okay, so some businesses business owners were calling in asking about the fees that have been accruing since the beginning of the pandemic. And I was wondering if they could be waived using these, the Bush program thing and SSBCI. That's
Well, my answer to that would be no. That is not. That would not be an appropriate expenditure for that, because if you look at those penalties are not just the result of the pandemic. This has been corporations that have been continuously to be late in their submittal since the inception of their corporation, or sometimes after a couple of years that they operate, they continue to neglect their submittal of annual report, and they have 2 months to do that every January and February, the entire 2 months to do that, and it was not done. So I would just feel so. I feel so sorry that when that law was passed, there was no discretion given to the Secretary of Commerce to look at the situation and make a decision whether to charge that penalty or not, the daily penalty. Uh, because if that was in the law, then we would have waived this penalty during the pandemic time, and also for those people that have legitimate reason why they did not submit it on time, then, we could have done that. But it is a law, and we need to, carry out this law because that didn't give us any flexibility. And that's the reason why I'm working with your committee right now to see if we can amend this law so that at least we can give that discretion to the Secretary of Commerce only on the daily penalty. And so we can take care when this kind of situation happens again in the future.
Thank you. I hope they heard you.
Thank you, Reverend Actoy. We'll take one last one if any member or Vice Chair McGoffin.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand that this is the governor's submission of the budget, right? But from a true and real budget standpoint, what is your department's actual cost to run your operation? And I'm asking because a lot of these expense line items are all zeroed out. But if we were to actually fill every single line item on here with actual expenditures amount, what would be your true budget cost?
I don't have that right now, but we can get you information on that because we
Okay.
do have and you're hearing that, so we need to come up with that. So yeah.
Just to get an understanding, right?
sure.
Because when you're preparing a budget, you really
Of
need
course,
to itemize
yes.
everything out with
Yes,
the cost, right?
yes.
And in this case, everything is zeroed out. So
Yeah.
in my opinion, this budget is severely understated.
Yeah.
And to really know how we can assist you to facilitate your operations, we have to get an understanding of what your true cost is to run this operation.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
We will provide you with that.
Okay.
Ms. Nadia, do you have a true figure or you had your hand up?
I just noticed it's best that we refer to our pre-COVID levels. So you could refer to the FY 2022 budget submission. So the 2019 column would show Department of Commerce's true expenditure, the picture. Yeah. It's just 20. Yeah.
Can we use our mic, please? I'm sorry.
If FY 19, it was $1.9 million for commerce, that operation. In 20, it went down to 1.7. Okay, and then because of the pandemic, FY 2021, it was 1.495. And that one again, there is some ARPA funds that comes in to cover for the rest. No, in FY 22, it's 1.955. So 1.955 and what we're requesting right now of 2.1 is really not that much difference. But yes, it didn't show all others in there. Mhm.
Thank you, Vice Chair McGoffin. At this time, we would like to thank Secretary De Leon Guerrero as well as Director Maritita, Ms. Palacios, Mr. Cabrera, and Mr. Taisagui for your time today, as well as those that came to assist you. If at this time, we will just wait on the informations that we've requested, Secretary, and we'll call you if we need any clarification. But we just want to take this opportunity again to thank you for coming in and answering the questions that the members had in understanding the department's needs. And so with that, you are excused and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Director?
Sorry, Chairman, but I just wanna, before we all leave and close this, I just wanted to, share a little bit of something to the committee, the members here, because yes, ABTC, Alcoholic Beverage Tobacco Control, deals with regulatory enforcement. Okay, we also deal with criminal enforcement out there, such as the black marketing, the smuggling of contraband cigarettes and alcoholic beverages. So it's not only that we deal with regulatory matters, but we also have our, enforcement officers out there that does, crack down criminal activities out there in the, community. So just to put that, if, communication out there that we are actually peace officers as we look under Title 4 CMC, and we enforce and protect our economic resources here in the Sinamay. So that's our responsibilities out there as ABTC officers. Working in tandem with DPS, we do work in tandem with them, but we understand that they have their separate operations out there. We have our own operations out there enforcing our laws, to safeguard the Sinamay community. So just to, add that into the record.
Oh
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Director, and thank you to your team. Which is why I brought the issue up of you requesting an additional 14, and unfortunately not getting it. And we understand that your enforcement division not only protects the community but also collects fees as well, and this brings in revenue into this government. And so, thankfully, Ms. Nadia is here. If there's any room in the revised budget to consider that request, we welcome it. So thank you again, Director Maritita, and to you, Secretary, and your team. At this time, members, do we have anything under announcement? We do have DPW up at 1 p.m. So please, we hope to see you there. If there's any other, none, I'd like a motion to adjourn. Motion was made in second. All in favor, say aye. No opposed, say nay. This meeting is hereby adjourned at 11:36 a.m.